Okay, so hello everyone. Good afternoon. Welcome to the Cousin Jonathan and Clyde the Rocketman Big Book study. We're just two sober alcoholics reading, studying, and discussing the big book the way Joe and Charlie did back in the day. Let's start with a moment of silence, followed by the set-aside prayer. God, please enable us to set aside everything we think we know about chapter 4, we agnostics in the big book, so we can have an open mind and a new experience. Please show us the truth. Amen. So we're going to go forward here as if we don't know what chapter 4 is. We don't know what a big book is. We got a completely open mind here. God's going to enable us to do that. So in 1973, Joe McHugh introduced Charlie P. as the AA speaker at an Al-Anon convention. Joe and Charlie soon discovered that they both shared a love for the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous. Traveling between their homes to discuss the big book became a regular event. So Clyde and Cousin Jonathan met in the Zoo Crew in 2023 and discovered that they also shared a love for the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous. We meet every Sunday at 2 to 3:30 p.m. Eastern in this room. Please have your big book handy to read along with us, take notes, and also to underline and highlight as we read. So I'm just making Mo a co-host here. And Lindsay, I'm just doing a couple of co-hosts here. We'll continue. Okay, so we'll be recording the audio of these meetings to share with others on our podcast. So the purpose of this big book study meeting is to help you when meeting with a prospect, which are now called sponsees, or talking about sobriety in general because you want to be armed with the facts about yourself and the AA program. Freedom from alcohol comes through taking the 12 steps and working with others. Page 15 of the 12 and 12 says that AA's 12 steps are a group of principles, spiritual in their nature, which if practiced as a way of life can expel the obsession to drink and enable the sufferer to become happily and usefully whole. How soon do you want to be happy, joyous, and free? We suggest that you purchase a copy of the big book for future use. You'll want to underline, highlight, and write notes. Please order your AA literature directly from AA so that the money goes to Alcoholics Anonymous and to ensure that you get a good copy. We are not advocating rushing through the steps. We do highly suggest, though, that you have a sense of urgency in taking the 12 steps and having them become a way of life sooner rather than later. Pretend that this is a matter of life and death. Well, actually, it is a matter of life and death. So once again, how soon do you want to be happy, joyous, and free? You can go to our website at thezoocrew.org to order your copy of the big book as well as read it online. The big book is our basic text and contains the full recipe for recovery. It is impossible to find a loophole in the big book that excludes you from being a member of AA. So welcome everybody to our podcast here. Glad you were able to join us. And last week we finished chapter 3, more about alcoholism, and we started in chapter 4, we agnostics. So if you have a big book, I'd like you to get, if you have a hard copy of it, go ahead and get it, and maybe a pen or a pencil and a highlighter so you can make notes and highlight and underline and whatnot. And we ended up reading the first couple pages, and we're gonna go through and kind of do a recap of pages 44 and 45 now, just to really be thorough about this. So want to go ahead and start with the first paragraph on page 44, where it talks about the first thing they ask is, if when you honestly want to, you cannot quit drinking entirely, or if when you drink, you have little control over the amount you take, you're probably an alcoholic. So there's the simple test. So if I decide that, yes, I'm an alcoholic, it says, if that's the case, I'm suffering from an illness which only a spiritual experience will conquer. So that's the solution to my problem, a spiritual experience. We read about that in chapter 2. There is a solution as well, and it's called the spiritual experience, spiritual awakening. So the next paragraph, Bill writes, to one who feels, this is a key word, he is an atheist or agnostic. An atheist does not believe in God. An agnostic thinks maybe there is, maybe there isn't. Doesn't matter. I'm still going to run the show myself, call the shots myself. So it says, to one who feels that he's atheist or agnostic, such an experience seems impossible. And that it seems impossible. It's not impossible. It just seems like it, because the seemingly hopeless state of mind and body that we're in when we get here. But to continue as he is means disaster. So basically, you have to make a choice. Do I want to just continue drinking and blotting out my existence until I'm dead, doomed to an alcoholic death, or live on a spiritual basis? And at this point, if feel like I'm atheist or agnostic, it's like, gee, I don't know. Both those options don't sound very good to me. So the third paragraph, he tells us, but it isn't so difficult. So this will inspire a little bit of hope in people. About half of the original fellowship were atheist or agnostic. They were exactly this type. And so it's, the choices are, again, after a while, we had to face the fact. We have to decide, are we going to find a spiritual basis of life, or are we just going to continue to the bitter end and kill ourselves with our alcoholism? And he repeats again, something like half of us thought we were atheists or agnostics. So that's why Bill wrote this chapter, to get us over this, people that have an issue with this God thing. Half the original membership and probably half the people that show up today are atheist or agnostic. And they feel like, well, gee, I have two choices. I can drink myself to death or do this, spiritual thing. I'm not into the spiritual thing. That's why this chapter was written. Okay. So,
hey, Clyde, I think that now's a good time to break down what an atheist is and what an agnostic is while we're still early in the chapter.
yeah,
Why don't
that's
we do that?
Yeah, that's a good idea. So an atheist feels like there is no God. They feel like you can prove there is no God, period. Now, an agnostic believes that there could be a God. Maybe there is, maybe there isn't. But even if there is, doesn't really care and is still going to run the show himself or herself. Um, they just don't really give it any extra thought, and they don't think there's any attraction to it. They just kind of ignore it and blow it off. So they're not necessarily convinced that there is no God, but they don't feel like there's any sense in even they don't really worry about it at all or think about it. So that's the difference I've heard of. What do you think, cousin? Does that sound right to you?
I think that
Yeah.
from what you're telling me, I can pretty much decide which one I was or am today. Am I an agnostic? Meaning that I don't believe that there even is a God or any gods. Maybe I believe in science or something like that. And then, you know, or do I believe that there's a God, right? But he don't want nothing to do with me. Yeah,
Yeah, that's right. So We'll go ahead and continue on now regarding the fourth paragraph. He's telling us, so the good news is in this paragraph, he says, our experience shows you need not be disconcerted. Half of the original membership were in that same category, and it's no problem. It says, don't worry about it. And so the next paragraph tells us how our willpower is a better philosophy of life. It says that we could wish to be moral, we could wish to be philosophically comforted, we could will these things with all our might, but the needed power wasn't there. So this is the power that I'm relying on is self-power, self-propulsion, my willpower. And it says that my human resources were not sufficient. They failed utterly. I could not solve the problem on my own. I don't have the power to do it. I tried and tried and tried. I can't do it. Ellen, did you want to come in and share with us? Come on in.
Oh, well, hi, Clyde. Hi, Cousin Jonathan. I'm new to this meeting. I wanted to try it. I was just curious what the format is and whether it's a sharing meeting or more of a workshop format.
Okay, I'll let you know. I'm going to mute you now. And so the format is, yes, you can raise your hand and share. We'd prefer to have people raise their hands before you come in. And I think I'll go ahead and set the timer for, you think 90 seconds are good, Cousin? What do you think on the timing for shares?
Yeah, 90 seconds is fine. Let's get some shares on this atheist and this agnostic thing there.
Yeah,
who
good
is
idea.
And who ain't.
Yeah. Yeah, come on in and share with us, Ellen. I'll set the timer. You go ahead.
Well, I just think that this idea of faith and whatever it may be is so essential. Now, I was raised in the Presbyterian church, and, I'm sort of a Methodist, but I'm really nothing at all beyond, hey, God, higher power, whatever anybody, wants to believe. And I talked to my husband about this. He's struggling with, cutting back drinking drastically. We're kind of on the same path, but I don't care. I tell him what you do. AA works for me. And now, yes, we can all think AA is best, but I just told him, you got to get right with God, whatever your conception may be, because that's the key to it. The Indians, we've got this Indian chief and our relative, and I'm reading some of his writings talking about oneness with the universe, with the earth, and all of that. And I just want to tell you how much I appreciate this conversation today. Thank you very much for doing this.
Okay, thanks for sharing with us, Ellen. We're glad you're here. Christy, did you want to comment on this atheist or agnostic issue and the solution, your choices here? Go ahead.
Sure, Clyde. Yes, sorry. I'm getting ready. Didn't realize my video was on. Yeah, so when I first came into this program, I personally was raised Catholic. But I had lost my faith in Catholicism and God in general several years prior. And I think at the time I considered myself agnostic. So now I've had a lot of time after that point to work it out in my head. And I do call my higher power God, and I have a very strong understanding of what that means to me. As far as being an agnostic is concerned, I was a pretty scientific person when I first came into AA. I was in a very science-driven program. I believe that there was a God, and it's not that agnostics don't care. It's just that there is no proof. There is no proof. So at that time, I kind of considered all people's gods, actually, I kind of consider it now because it's not my place to judge your God, is equal, because there's no proof that it's like Jesus's father. There's no proof that it's not Muhammad. There's no proof in all of these religions and stuff that I don't think when it gets down to it, they're negative things. So I think of them as equal, but there's no proof that either one is right. And my God today is not a Catholic God. People might consider me still agnostic. I'm a very spiritual person though. And I think that's kind of the difference. It's not that agnostics don't care. It's just that they don't know. Thankfully, I found my own God, and I'm very comfortable with my God, and I hope everyone else in this room finds theirs too. I'll pass.
Awesome. Yeah, thank you. You bring up a good point, Christy. And yeah, I'm going to share after Lindsay does. Come on in, Lindsay, and we'll end after Cousin.
Good afternoon, everybody. Lindsay, grateful recovering alcoholic. I had a huge issue with the God thing. I've had some childhood trauma related to religious stuff. And, I was in the deepest, darkest desperation, and I thought I will do anything but go into this religious cult called AA. And I swear, I was like, I will do anything but that. Because if I have to have people talking about God this, God that, like, I'm not doing it. I was completely closed-minded. I was like, I got this. And meanwhile, I didn't at all. And even up until I went to go do the 12 steps in 4 hours with Cousin Jonathan, even at that point, I was still, I read We Agnostics already, but I went in there and I said, you know what? And I kept an open mind. I said, you know what? I'm just going to listen to these steps and see how it goes. And it's then when we were going over step 3 that I shut off my camera and I sat there, and literally the warmest feeling I've ever felt in my life. My mind went completely quiet. And I was like, I'm getting tingles even saying it right now. So for me, it was like the previous person had mentioned, it's like, I need facts. I need to see it. I need to experience it. I need to know it to be true for me. And now I'll tell you, a short 3 months later from where I was, 3.5 months, I'm telling you, every single day I'm on this communication with my higher power. My higher power is there. My higher power is real. And you know what? I came from a very, very tough place with relying on any sort of God. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Lindsay, for sharing with us. We appreciate that. Cousin, yeah, come on in and share, my friend.
Yeah. I'm Jonathan, and I'm an alcoholic. And on this note, I'm listening, and I'm gonna tell you something that was told to me that made this a lot easier for me with the atheist, the agnostic. But the point is that, because as I'm sitting there and I'm wondering, like the previous year, what do you want me to be? Are you trying to make me a Christian? You're trying to make me a Muslim? You're trying to make me a Jew? You're trying to make me a Buddhist? What is it going to take? And somebody told me that, and this was the best thing that I heard. He said, we're only trying to make you a believer in whatever you choose to believe in sincerely. And that made sense. We're only trying to help you to be a believer in what you can sincerely believe in, and that can help you. So that was the simplest thing that was told to me about that, and I went for that. I could buy that. You just want me to be a believer,
Yes. Okay, man, Cousin. These shares, you guys are just waking up the spirit within me and making my truth that much more crystal clear. Because my experience was, when I came to the program, I felt like I was an atheist, and having a spiritual experience seemed impossible to me. But what I did was I just surrendered and turned myself over to the care of the program, the group, Alcoholics Anonymous, and just did the steps with the tiniest little bit of, okay, I'll give it a try and see how it goes. And now I am a believer, a true believer. It happened to me as the result of taking the 12 steps of Alcoholics Anonymous. So that's how it works. It didn't seem like it was even a possibility for me. And then once I took the steps, it became very real. I'm a believer now. Thank you for the wonderful shares. So let's go ahead then. If anyone else wants to share, you can raise your hand, or we'll keep going on with our study here. All right. So the problem is, on page 45, Bill tells us it's a lack of power. That's my dilemma, okay? I don't have the power to solve my problem. It's beyond my self-will and willpower. It's beyond human power. And it says we had to be a power greater than ourselves. Okay, that's the power that can that I need to live by, a higher power. So he's telling us we need a higher power. Obviously, he says, but where and how are we to find this power? That's a question. Bill does that over and over and over in the book. He writes a question, then he writes an answer. So the question is, where do I find this power and how do I find this power? Well, here's the answer. Next paragraph. Well, that's exactly what this book is about. That's why this book was written. Its main object is to enable you to find a power greater than yourself, which will solve your problem. So that's what the 12 steps are all about. That's what this book was written for, to enable us to find this power that's our higher power. Hi, Mama Bear, come on in and share.
Thank you guys. Loretta Mama Bear, and I'm an alcoholic. I love this. You guys may be a Alcoholics Anonymous thumper, big book thumper, but I'm a Bible thumper, and he brought me into these rooms, and it seems from the reading that we're reading today, it seems to me like that's the only way. Being an alcoholic, coming into these rooms, discussing this is the only way that I call him my father, brings people, because he loves us, all of us, every single one of us. It doesn't matter what you believe in. He loves us. He's our father. And that's how he draws us to his love. And that's what I'm seeing in this reading here. And that's what attracted me to AA last year when I was the Zoo Crew. You guys, is because I see it's like a diamond facet. I see all the different facets of a diamond shining. And it's beautiful. Thank you very much for letting me share. Peace out.
Thank you, Mama Bear. Okay, so that's what this book's all about. That's what this program's all about. Finding a higher power that can solve our problem. That's what this is. So he goes on now to tell us over and over about, he's reiterating paragraphs 1 through 3, where if I'm an atheist or an agnostic, it says again, here, difficulty arises with agnostics and atheists because of the God word and the term spiritual matters and spiritual experience causes problems with atheists and agnostics. And that's why he wrote this chapter. It's one of the longest chapters in the book. It's 14 pages, 13 or 14 pages long. So Bill tells us, he says at the bottom of page 45, we know how he feels. We have shared his honest doubt and prejudice, just like it says over on page 44. So, and here's the thinking that some people have, these atheists and agnostics, that they said that they looked upon this world of warring, I'm on the top of page 46, warring individuals, warring theological systems, inexplicable calamity, deep skepticism. So, and they're looking at all these hypocrites that claim to be godly. And how could a supreme being have anything to do with it all? Who could even comprehend a supreme being? So we can understand, where they're coming from in that vein. But then again, it says in other moments, we found ourselves thinking, when we're looking up at the beautiful stars and we're looking at the beautiful mountains and streams and the flowers and the ocean, and I mean, all the majesty and beauty of the world, it's like, who made all this then? So we feel this awe and wonder. It's like, well, gee, I wonder, So it's not a clear-cut thing. It's like one of our shares earlier, Christy said, you just can't, there's no proof. So he says, so this is where we're picking up on the new reading today. It's this first complete paragraph on page 46. So we're going to continue. This is where we left off last week. And we're going to read one paragraph at a time and then stop and discuss. So it says, yes, we of agnostic temperament have had these thoughts and experiences. Let us make haste to reassure you. We found that as soon as we were able to lay aside prejudice, so prejudice is like preconceived ideas. That's having this rigid, already having your mind made up that you already know the answer, you have a position, and you're not going to change it. Prejudice is preconceived information. It says we need to be able to lay that aside and express even a willingness to believe in a power greater than ourselves. So he's telling us we don't have to believe right now. We just have to be willing to believe that just maybe there is a power greater than us. We commence to get results, even though it was impossible for any of us to fully define or comprehend that power, which is God. Ellen, you want to come in and share with us?
Oh, just briefly, Clyde, and I'm Ellen, I'm an alcoholic. I was raised in such of a formal, structured, almost rigid, harsh religious framework. For me, coming to AA got me closer to God than I've ever been, because all I had to do was chill out, be cool, and believe there was a God, and just let God, and stop thinking, oh gee, I'm going to go to hell, or did I violate what commandment, or this or that or that or this. Just for, I'm not saying all that stuff's not important, all those rules and regulations and things, and that there's a time and a place. But for me, it's very freeing that, this atheist agnostic stuff, it's okay. To be either one of them, as far as I can tell, as long as you can find some type of a higher power, because everyone can be a member of AA. All we want to do is just not drink. So that's all I had, Clyde. Thank you so much. This is so informative.
Great. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for sharing, Ellen. We appreciate it. Come on in, Mo.
Hey, Clyde, thank you for taking the meeting. Yeah, it basically saying it right here. All we need was willingness to believe in a power greater than ourselves. Then we commence to get results, and we don't really have to understand or comprehend that or define that power. Just the willingness to believe that there is a power greater than us. I never had a problem with my higher power because I was raised Catholic, so I always believed in a God. But through my addiction and my alcoholism, I turned away from him. But thank God and thank AA. AA has brought me back in connection with my higher power again. And I am so grateful to be here, grateful to have AA, grateful to have these meetings that are keeping me sober. Thank you, Clyde.
Yeah, thank you, Mo, for sharing with us. We really appreciate it. Yeah, so this is the beauty of it. We just have to be willing to believe in a power greater than ourselves. Just that means, just maybe there is some higher power out there. I don't have to have belief or faith at this point. I just need to be willing to believe that maybe, and I can't define or comprehend it. That's fine. So this is the next paragraph, and Bill brings this point home over and over. This is the main thing that launched our fellowship in the first place, when Ebby mentioned to Bill, in Bill's story, he spent, I'm going to mute, there we go. He spent like 3 pages telling us about his difficulty, believing in the God of organized religion. And that's what he thought he had to believe in. And then that's when Ebby told him, Bill, why don't you choose your own conception of God? And that's when Bill came to believe. That's hit him, and he explains his second step experience. So here's what he's kind of repeating what he said earlier in Bill's story. Much to our relief, we discovered we did not need to consider another's conception of God. So if you're one of these atheist or agnostic types that thinks that you have to be converted to the Christian religion and become a, Bible thumping Christian, you don't have to consider somebody else's conception. Our own conception, however inadequate, was sufficient to make the approach and to effect a contact with him. So it's whatever conception you have of a power greater than yourself, a higher power. It can be whatever you want it to be, however inadequate. So there's no loopholes here. So you can make the approach and make contact with a power greater than yourself. As soon as we admitted the possible existence, it doesn't say the existence, it says the possible existence of a creative intelligence, a spirit of the universe underlying the totality of things, we began to be possessed of a new sense of power and direction, provided we took other simple steps. We found that God does not make too hard terms with those who seek him. To us, the realm of spirit is broad, roomy, all-inclusive, never exclusive or forbidding to those who earnestly seek. It is open, we believe, to all men. So he's using the word seek, seek, seek. So we need to seek this power that's greater than us. Come on in, Mama Bear, and share with us.
Yeah, I love that statement because, I was in the religious scene before I became an alcoholic, and getting to that point in our spiritual walk, because we have hell, and most of us experience hell on this earth, but there is a heaven on this earth, and to get there was very hard. However, in going through these studies with you all, what you just read just sums it all up. That's it. It's really that simple, and it is once I get to that point, and it's happening to me now, that everything opens up. The universe opens up. Things are happening in good, positive ways. I do stumble. I just had a thing today that upset me. When it concerns my children, I become Mama Bear, and I get upset very easily when it concerns my children. However, I gotta hand it over to my father, and sometimes I have people to talk to. Most times I don't, but I always have him, and we can work this out. Thank you very much for letting me share. Peace out.
Thank you, Mama Bear. So this will be a great time to ask, is there anyone in the group right now that is not willing to express, willing to believe in a power greater than yourself? Is there anyone that's not willing to believe in a power greater than yourself? Or is there anyone in the room that will not admit the possible existence of a creative intelligence or a spirit of the universe? Who thinks it's impossible for that to be true, that there's a creative intelligence or a spirit of the universe? Anybody think that's impossible? And is anybody unwilling to believe in a power greater than yourself? Okay, good. So we're all in good shape here then. We'll continue reading. So on the top of page 47, he says, when therefore we speak to you of God, we mean your own conception of God. There it is again. It's however you relate to God, your own conception. We don't have a one size fits all. Everyone gets to pick their own conception. It says this applies to to other spiritual expressions which you find in this book. Do not let any prejudice, there's that word again. Prejudice is old ideas. Though we can't have these old ideas anymore. Do not let any prejudice you may have against spiritual terms deter you from honestly asking yourself what they mean to you. At the start, this was all we needed to commence spiritual growth. So this is where our spiritual growth begins. It says to affect our first conscious relation with God as we understood him. It says afterward, we found ourselves accepting many things which then seemed entirely out of reach. There it is again, seemed entirely out of reach. It says that was growth. But if we wished to grow, we had to begin somewhere. So this is our beginning. It says, so we used our own conception, however limited it was. So he's repeating himself here over and over about, here, come on in and share with us, cousin.
No, you're right on the on the right track there. And I think that this would be a good time for us to share what is my conception of God. If someone was to ask me if I'm working with someone, that's the purpose of us coming here, that we might learn how to help ourselves by helping others through the study and the application of the literature in the big book. So if someone was to ask me, well, what's your God all about? Because you're trying to get me to try to help me, not get you, but trying to help me to get in touch with a power greater than myself. What's that like? And for me, I know my God to be powerful, right? I know him to be loving. I know him to be a provider. I know him to be full of knowledge, wisdom, and understanding. And I know my God to be of peace, and most of all, that I know about my God is that he's there to guide. He's there to guide. I'd like to hear someone else on the concept of God.
Yeah, that's a great idea, cousin. So let's do a little role playing here. So let's assume I'm a sponsee and you're working with me. You're my sponsor. John, Lindsay, Courtney, Mo, Ellen. I'm the sponsee and I'm telling you, hey, I don't know about this God thing. I'm brand new to AA. Why don't you tell me a little bit about your higher power? Explain this higher power thing. What is your higher power and how does it work in your program? So what's your answer? We'll do 2.5 minute shares if you need a little extra time. So I'm a sponsee and I'm asking my sponsor, hey, can you explain your higher power to me? Come on in, Mama Bear. Tell us about your higher power.
Papa God, he is my father, and he loves all of us. It doesn't matter what you believe in. You could believe in him or not. He believes in you. And he is the creator of the universe, and he thinks the world of us. And my higher power is Papa God. I call him Father, and I'm going to stick to that. Thank you very much for letting me share.
Great. Thank you. Okay. So we're going to go ahead now and ask Christy to come on in. Tell me about your higher power, Christy.
All righty, Clyde. My name's Christy, alcoholic. Yeah, so my higher power is a little different, I guess. So I will share. My God personally is a God of peace and serenity. It's also goodness and love. And usually when I connect with my higher power, it's not through physically getting on my knees. It's usually by getting myself in a state of peace and serenity myself. That's when I hear it personally. There have been a lot of times in my life where I haven't had a lot of peace and serenity within myself, and they're usually the times that I am the most disconnected from my higher power. So yeah, it's a little different in a way. It's not, I don't really directly pray to my higher power a lot. I don't ask for much. I seek peace and serenity within myself, and that's how I connect with my higher power, if that makes sense to anyone. So I love to hear others' conceptions, though. I think this is such an interesting topic. Thank you.
Thank you, Christy. It is because at the end of the day, everybody, this program is all about a higher power, period. You can't dodge or duck the issue. Let's face it square on. And let's hear what Lindsay has to say. Please tell us about your higher power, Lindsay.
Hi, everybody. My name's Lindsay. I'm a great recovering alcoholic. You know, I'm not totally absolutely sure. I just know that it exists. He exists. I know that I really find my higher power in nature very, very strong. So maybe Mother Nature. You know, maybe God as in Jesus. Also, there's some connection in Buddhism that I feel comforted by and that I respect. So I'm not totally sure yet, but you know what? I'm okay with that because I actually experience it's a very tactile thing for me. And when I pray, I do feel like I'm being communicated with and that I can communicate. And I think that that's the most important thing. And we'll see. You know, as time goes on, maybe more will be revealed and things will become clear for me. So thanks.
Thank you, Lindsay. We appreciate you. Yeah, and I want to share my higher power is just an absolutely the evidence is overwhelming. I've had, if we read the description of a spiritual experience in Appendix 2, it talks about a profound alteration in my reaction to life, and that such a change could have hardly been brought about by myself alone. That is my higher power that has profoundly changed the way I think, the way I feel, the way I behave. I am a completely different person now as a recovered alcoholic. And I have tapped into and now realize it was an unsuspected inner resource. God's been there all along within me. I just wasn't really, I wasn't even aware of it before. It's that vital sixth sense, the great reality deep within, the unsuspected inner resource. It's that voice guiding me through inspiration, intuitive thoughts, and decisions. That is God. And the way I was able to develop this phenomenal relationship was by taking the 12 steps and continuing to practice these principles in all of my affairs. My God lives within me and guides me and helps me and directs me. It's unbelievable. I can't fully define or comprehend God, but I do know that he's there. Absolute certainty of it. I am a true believer now. My life has gotten so good, I can't believe it. And it's getting better all the time. So that's my description of a higher power. And again, I started this process as an atheist. Well, or at least I felt like I was. I thought I was. And wow, just trusted the program, did the work and trusted the process. And it's like, whoa. So that's what God is. It's this transformational entity that just blows my mind. I'm so grateful. So that's my description. Anybody else want to share on your higher power? Okay. So then let's go ahead and keep reading. So we get to use our own conception, and whatever it is, that's all we need to start our growth. And now we're going to get to the actual formal taking of step 2. Okay, so, and I've mentioned this before, the 12 steps are spelled out on pages 59 and 60 in chapter 5, how it works. That's where they tell us what the 12 steps are. The directions for taking the steps are in the book. So step 1 is taken on page 30, where we had to concede to our innermost selves that we were alcoholic. That's the first step in recovery. This here in the middle of page 47 is the formal taking of step 2. Came to believe that a power greater than ourselves could restore us to sanity. What does that mean? How do we do that? Here it is right here. This is step 2. We needed to ask ourselves but one short question. Do I now believe or am I even willing to believe that there is a power greater than myself? That's the question. So here's your yes or no to step 2. As soon as a man can say that he does believe or is willing to believe, we emphatically assure him that he is on his way. It has been repeatedly proven among us that upon this simple cornerstone, a wonderfully effective spiritual structure can be built. And then there's the asterisk that refers us back to the spiritual experience in Appendix 2. That was in chapter 2. There is a solution as well. Twice we got referred to the spiritual experience. So, Cuzin, come on in. What do you think about this? Step 2.
Oh man, this is incredible. This is incredible, Clyde. You know, the simplicity. And this is the second step. And it shows us how simple this could be. I learned how to often chuckle when I hear someone say, I'm on my second step, or I'm writing my second step, or something like that. When we look in the book, there's absolutely no writing involved. You know, it clearly says that I'm asked a question. You know, it's about answering some questions honestly. And the question is, do you believe, or are you willing to believe that there's a power greater than yourself? Then it goes on to say that as soon as I can say that I believe, or I'm willing to believe, that I'm ready to move on to step 3. You know, let's read that again, and let's keep this thing simple. You know, that's why we do it out of the book. Because I can make up some elaborate second step exercise that could it could actually kill people, you know. But this book is here to help us. So let's take a good look at that.
Yeah, we will. So
I didn't know this. I didn't know this. And when you guys showed me this, I was like, wow, wow, this is how simple this thing can be.
that's right. Yeah. So, John, why don't you come in and share, and then we're going to read this again. We're taking step 2 here. What are your thoughts? Whoops, accidentally muted you. Come on in, John. Sorry.
Hey,
Yeah.
thanks, Clyde. John, alcoholic. This paragraph from the very first time I read the book is highlighted with 5 stars next to the paragraph going down. It's just so meaningful to me that, I always believed in God, but I just didn't really pay any attention to him. And now, since the program started, I recognize him as our creator that created love as well, goodness and charity and spiritual giving. And you know what, in addition to prayer, what I now try and practice all day long, every day, is gratitude to God for all the blessings that I've been given. And paying attention to that has been really, really important to me. And just being thankful and practicing gratitude. So, thanks.
Great. Thanks for sharing with us, John. Hey, Jonathan, come on in. Whoops. Yeah, you should be able. There you go.
All right. Sorry about that. Jonathan, alcoholic, 8 months this week. It's funny, and I just got to share this. I'm kind of calling myself out a little bit, but I definitely had no belief in any kind of higher power when I started this. In fact, as I look back in my big book, and this is where I'm calling myself out, a lot of people have a lot of highlights and underlines. I do have some, but when I was starting to go through the big book, in my head, maybe I wasn't in a good place. I still don't believe in God. That's a whole other thing. But looking back at this now, I've never seen so many question marks and asterisks that refer back to comments like horseshit and horseshit. What the fuck? Boy, am I glad that I changed my way of thinking with that. And although I don't believe in God, there is something out there that is helped me from not drinking. And it's more than my health or my family or just not wanting to anymore. But when I did find that, it did make a complete change, and it's kept me sober for 8 months. So with that, my hat's off to everybody else, and I am done. Thanks, guys.
All right, thanks for sharing with us, Jonathan. Whoops. Okay, come on in, cousin, and share with us.
Yeah, and I'm glad that we're here today and we're moving on. And this, this is the second step. And I just want to say this early because we're going to go through the whole first 164 pages, and it's going to be the instructions on taking the step. And what I found is there's no such thing as being on a step. There's no such thing. That's not in our literature. Either I've taken a step or I haven't. And the difference between working the steps and using the steps. Either I'm using the step or I'm working the step. Now, when I'm using the step, it's when I'm using it in my life, in my day-to-day life. When I'm working, in order to work this, do you know that in order to work this program, I must be sitting across from another alcoholic? That's working the steps. Using the steps is what I do when I'm in the supermarket. Working the steps is what I do when I'm sitting across from another alcoholic. And don't claim that you're on a step, because if you look at the steps, it uses these terms. You've taken it or you've completed it. It never says that you're on a step. Either you're taking them or you're completing them. And it's as simple as that. And with this step 2, it's right to the point. It says as soon as a man can believe or is even willing to believe, then we emphatically then we call out and we let him know that he's on his way to step 3. There's no getting stuck on step 2. Not according to the big book. Either you believe or you don't. And if you don't believe, actually, if you're not willing to believe in a power greater than yourself, you actually can't move, you can't be a part of this program. That's not AA. And I'm not talking about God. I'm not talking about God. But I'm talking about we must believe that there's something greater than us, because it was us that got me here. It was me that got me here. So if I'm going to continue to believe in me, I might as well go back out there, or keep doing that and see what I keep getting.
Yep. Thank you, cousin, for the great insight. Really appreciate it. Susanna, come on in and share with us.
Hey, I'm Susanna Alcoholic. I had a question about and I don't know, maybe I'm jumping the gun, but like for me personally, I do believe in a power greater than myself. But I'm wondering if you guys can speak a little bit to the, can restore us to sanity part. Because that's a part of the step that I struggle with, and I'm not really sure how to, I don't know if it's my will or what. So I'm just wondering if you guys can expand on that piece of it a little bit to help me understand.
I'd like to expand on that, Clyde, because I misunderstood that too. Because the step said, came to believe that a power greater than myself could restore me to sanity, right? And I figured that once I came to believe that I would be restored to sanity. That's not the case. When we take the steps, the sanity is not returned until we complete the first 9 steps. Simple as that. That's the answer to that. That's the textbook answer. Sanity does not come back into play until we've completed step 9, and then it tells us, for by this time sanity has returned.
That's right.
So you want sanity to return, take the rest of the steps.
That's exactly right.
The second step is only about believing that it can happen. And if I really believe, then I'm going to continue on with the rest of the steps. But sanity is not going to come back until I completed the first 9 steps, according to the big book.
That's right.
Does that answer your question?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's actually super helpful. So now I'm going to have to marinate on that and push into action harder.
Yeah, you just got to take the step. That's all you got to do. Insanity will return.
Yeah, so what Cousin's referring to is on page 84 in the 10th step. You know, the middle of the page on page 84 says this thought brings us to step 10. And then it's that second paragraph that says we've ceased fighting anything or anyone, even alcohol. And it says, for by this time sanity will have returned. That's the result of doing the first 9 steps. So yeah, you don't get your sanity back till you complete the steps. That's the whole point that Cousin's making.
Yeah, and Clyde, we've read this thing numerous times. Step 3, no mention of sanity. Step 4, no mention of sanity. Step 5, no mention of sanity. It talks about peace, not sanity. Step 6 and 7, no mention of sanity again. Even 8 and 9. It's not until we get to step 10 that word comes back into play from step 2. Isn't that something?
It is. Yep. And chapter 3, more about alcoholism, is all about the insanity of our alcoholic mind. So that's why they're mentioning here in step 2, because that chapter, the doctor's opinion and Bill's story, and chapter 2, there is a solution, and chapter 3, more about alcoholism, all talks about the powerlessness and the unmanageability and the insanity of us drinking. Even though we know it's injurious, we know there's going to be serious negative consequences, and yet we still drink. That's the insanity. And so to restore us to sanity and get us over that is the result of taking the first 9 steps. And then by the time we get to step 10, sanity will have returned. We'll be reacting sanely and normally. The obsession to drink will have been removed, and we'll be in a position of neutrality. That's the sanity being restored. Come on in, Mama Bear.
I just have a question. Where on 47 talks about the sanity part?
The sanity is on page 59, where the steps are outlined in chapter 5, how it works. It says, came to believe that a power greater than ourselves could restore us to sanity. That's what she's talking about. At this point, to take the step, we don't even need to consider sanity. We just need to answer, am I willing to believe? Do I believe, or am I willing to believe in a power greater than myself? And as long as I say yes, I've completed step 2.
So what page are we on right now?
We're on page 47.
Okay. All right.
The agnostic.
I got a little confused because when you guys start talking about the sanity part, and I'm looking for it where it says sanity on
We were answering a question, a step 2 question. That's what it was.
Oh.
Yes.
Oh, okay. All right. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Okay. Let's go ahead and continue then. So as long as I can, am willing to believe, answer yes, I'm willing to believe that there's a power greater than me, I'm on my way. I can have a wonderfully effective spiritual structure built, which is great. And well, that's the word he uses. Next paragraph. That was great news to us. For we had assumed we could not make use of spiritual principles unless we accepted many things on faith, which seemed difficult to believe. It says, when people presented us with spiritual approaches, how frequently did we all say, I wish I had what that man has. I'm sure it would work if I could only believe as he believes. But I cannot accept as surely true the many articles of faith which are so plain to him. So it was comforting to learn that we could commence at a simpler level. Wow. So that means all I have to do is admit the possibility, willing to believe that there's a power greater than me, and I can recover from alcoholism. I don't have to be a true believer with hardcore, unshakable faith in God. He's telling us we don't need to have that. In fact, it would be rare to have that at this point anyway, without doing the work and completing the steps. So he said, it's great news. that we can use spiritual principles to recover from alcoholism with just this simple little belief that and that there is a power greater than myself. That's all I need. So he's telling us, don't worry. If you don't have a bunch of faith right now, that's just fine. No problem. So, anybody have any comments on that? Do you ever feel like your faith is a little low? You don't have enough of it? Here's my experience. I found that just a little bit of my faith mixed with the power of God goes a long way, because he's the one doing the work. Come on in, Ellen, and share with us.
Well, Clyde, again, thank you so much. And I think you're right. I was thinking about your question a while back about, if you had a sponsee, how would you say is your experience or conception of a higher power? What I know is when I'm doing the right thing, like, what we say, do the next right thing, tell me where to go, what to say, what to do, thy will be done, I know in my soul, in my heart, what is right for wrong. And to me, that inherently makes me know that there is, well, for me, it's the God, but certainly a higher power, that lives in me, that guides me. And I certainly know when I feel icky inside, and I think that's an indication as well. And, I just want to have that good feeling of peace, tranquility, serenity, the happy, joyous, free. And that's when I know that I'm abiding by my conception of my higher power and those spiritual principles where we try to get progress. Of course, we just get progress, but not spiritual perfection. So thank you. That's all.
Great. Thank you. And I just want to thank you, Ellen. I want to reiterate that we don't begin with faith and then get results. We take the steps, and that's what builds our faith. Okay, so we use the spiritual principles and tools of this taking the steps, and that's what builds our faith. That's how it works. It's the other way around. What he's telling us here is you don't have to have faith to begin with, and then the program will work, these spiritual principles. It's actually the other way around. Come on in, Lindsay.
Hi, I'd just like to also add that for me personally, step 4 was really, really pivotal to being able to restore to sanity. So that's where a lot of the personal reflection and work came in to try to shift my ideas and my experiences about how I was relating to the world as an alcoholic versus somebody who was working the program and integrating into a healthier way and state of living and thinking. Thanks.
All right, thank you, Lindsay. Lindsay's talking about a later step where that helped her get restored to sanity. But right now, we're just focusing on this higher powers. Step 2, coming to believe. So we'll continue reading now. At the bottom of page 47, it says, besides a seeming inability to accept much on faith, we often found ourselves handicapped by obstinacy, sensitiveness, and unreasoning prejudice. Here's that word again, prejudice. It's these old ideas that we need to be rid of. It says, many of us have been so touchy that even casual reference to spiritual things made us bristle with antagonism. This sort of thinking had to be abandoned. He's letting us know we have to have an open mind about this stuff. We can't snap our minds shut with this unreasoning prejudice. It says, though some of us resisted, we found no great difficulty in casting aside such feelings. That's the old ideas, casting aside. We need to have a new open mind here. It says, faced with alcoholic destruction, we soon became as open-minded, that's the word, open-minded, on spiritual matters as we had tried to be on other questions. In this respect, alcohol was a great persuader. It finally beat us into a state of reasonableness. Sometimes this was a tedious process, We hope no one else will be prejudiced for as long as some of us were. There's that word again, prejudice. This whole chapter is about having an open mind and trying a different way of looking at things and doing things. That's what this is about. So when you have a choice between alcoholic destruction or being open-minded on spiritual matters, what are you going to choose? You know, that's the question. Come on in, Mama Bear.
Clyde, that's amazing. Before I became an alcoholic, I believe I was one of those people you just talked about. You know, it took me to become an alcoholic, suffered for 30, well, other people suffered. I suffered a little bit, but other people suffered more than I did. And and he for me to acknowledge, you know, my beliefs, that's not right. But it took alcoholism to shake me up and come into reality. This is the way to go. And so, you know, I'm grateful that I'm a recovered alcoholic now, and I'm grateful that my understanding of this way of living is so much more higher than anybody can imagine. And I'm very grateful for that. With that, I will say peace out.
Great. Thank you, Mama Bear. We appreciate that. So again, referring back to me working with a sponsee that says, hey, Clyde, I'm a confirmed atheist. I'm not going for this God thing. I'm going to let them know that, hey, I know you got these rigid, fixed ideas, but why don't you just try this out. Just forget about what you think you know, and just take the rest of the steps and just admit that there's some power greater than you are. You're not the mightiest power in existence in the universe. And take the rest of the steps and just see what happens. Just try it out. And that's all it takes. That's all it takes. It's that simple. So I have to get rid of the unreasoning prejudice and say, okay, I'll just try it. What the heck? What do I got to lose? I'm going to die of alcoholism if I don't try it. So I'll just test it out. It's that simple. So the reader, now here we go. This is my sponsee. He's saying, oh, hi, B, come on in and share with us. Welcome.
Thank you. Hi, B, an alcoholic. This reading reminds me of when I first came to the rooms. I went to a group. This is before COVID, before we started these, but anyway. And I was like a deer, you know, the headlights, that metaphor. I didn't know what to expect. I had, you know, seen, you know, on movies, you know, this idea about the alcoholic, you know, AA meetings. But so, you know, I think I came in, they were very welcoming, and then they started having this conversation about the higher power. And of course, I hadn't really heard that before, but it was so interesting. As we went around the room, people were saying, well, I think it's she, I think it's it, I think it's, you know, my inside me. I mean, everybody had a different way of describing where their strength and where the power was coming from for them. And that was, I went, whoa, now I just had that education right away to see that, you know, it is something that each one of us has to find within our own understandings. But that was, the reading just reminded me of all these different she's, it's, her. Was an interesting experience, and thanks for letting me share that.
Thank you for sharing with us, B. We're
Now,
glad
now,
you're here.
Clyde,
Yes.
Clyde, let's stop right. Let's stop right here and let everybody know what we're getting ready to read now. Okay. Clyde says the reader may still ask why he should believe in a power greater than themselves. And then it says, we think there are good reasons. Let us look at some of them. Now, for the next 3 to 4 pages. There is nothing spiritual about these pages. These are the most intellectual pages in the book. So I want you to know that before we start reading it, because you will get lost. Bill uses words and phrases and ideas that are just like really, they go over our heads. So you really have to pay attention. And I just want you to know that before you start reading it, because I've read it many, many times before someone brought that to my attention. This is the most intellectual part of the whole big book. First 164 pages. Am I right, Clyde?
You are, Cousin. Yeah, and so because he's going to ask us a question, then he's going to give a bunch of answers. And yeah, it's very intellectual, just like Cousin said. We're going to get into it now.
It's wordy, in other words. It's wordy, very wordy. Go ahead.
Yeah. Okay, so it says, the reader may still ask why he should believe in a power greater than himself. He's still not convinced on it. He says, we think, but here's what Bill says. We think there are good reasons. Let us have a look at some of them. So here's some reasons why I should believe in a power greater than myself. 1, the practical individual of today is a stickler for facts and results. Nevertheless,
Smarty pants.
Yeah.
Smarty pants. Smarty pants. Bill knows he's talking to smarty pants. That's why he upped his game on this one. Go ahead.
Yeah. It's like, okay, I want some facts. I want some results. I want some, conclusive proof. So it says, nevertheless, the 20th century readily accepts theories of all kinds, provided they are firmly grounded in fact. It says, we have numerous theories, for example, about electricity. Everybody believes them without a murmur of doubt. Why this ready acceptance? Simply because it is impossible to explain what we see, feel, direct, and use without a reasonable assumption as a starting point. So he's talking about the electricity here. It says, everybody nowadays believes in scores of assumptions for which there is good evidence, but no perfect visual proof. And does not science demonstrate that visual proof is the weakest proof? It is being constantly revealed as mankind studies the material world that outward appearances are not inward reality at all. It says the prosaic steel girder is a mass of electrons whirling around each other at incredible speed. Let's back up though. I want to give you some examples of things that there's no visual proof, but there's very good evidence. I would say a microwave oven is one of those. When I take my cold cup of coffee and I put it in the microwave and I put it on high heat for a minute and a half, and it comes out hot, I didn't see what heated that coffee up. There's no visual there, but the evidence is there for sure. Very good evidence that there were microwaves making that coffee vibrate, the molecules and atoms vibrate and heat it up. Another thing that I can't see, but there's very good evidence for, is called a little thing called gravity. If I step off of a tall building, I'm going to fall and hit the ground really hard. That's gravity. I can't see it, but it's real. It's there. So these are the types of things he's hinting at, that there's things that we can't see, but we know there's good evidence that they are there. So that's what he's talking about here. So the prosaic steel girder is a mass of electrons whirling around each other at incredible speed. These tiny bodies are governed by precise laws, and these laws hold true throughout the material world. Science tells us so. We have no reason to doubt it. So that's what a steel girder is. It looks like a solid thing, like a solid hunk of steel, but it's actually a bunch of little teeny things whirling around Sorry about the noise, if you can hear that. Hold on. That was an ambulance driving by. So what you're looking at and what's really there are two different things, is what he's telling us. Says, so when, however, the perfectly logical assumption is suggested that underneath the material world and life as we see it, there is an all-powerful, guiding, creative intelligence, right there, our perverse streak comes to the surface and we laboriously set out to convince ourselves it isn't so. We read wordy books and indulge in windy arguments, thinking we believe this universe needs no God to explain it. Were our contentions true, it would follow that life originated out of nothing, means nothing, and proceeds nowhere. So can you see how some people, when they just hear about this underlying creative intelligence, some all-powerful force, it can't exist because it can't be seen? That's just, they're not going for it. Just because you can't see it doesn't mean it's not there. That's the whole point here. Does anybody have any comments on this? All-powerful guiding creative intelligence? No? Okay. Good. Instead of regarding ourselves as intelligent agents, spearheads of God's ever-advancing creation, we agnostics and atheists chose to believe that our human intelligence was the last word, the Alpha and the Omega, the beginning and end of all. Rather vain of us, wasn't it? To think, isn't that silly for us to think that we have it all figured out? We have all the answers. We're the smartest things in existence. That's kind of ridiculous, isn't it? That's what he's saying.
I have to laugh at that. I just have to laugh at that. It is ridiculous, you know.
Yeah. Yeah, so he's telling us, have an open mind about this underlying, you know, creative intelligence, spirit of the universe, some energy, some force, some power, some higher power. Just because we can't see it doesn't mean it's not there. So it says, we who have traveled this dubious path beg you to lay aside prejudice. There it is again, that prejudice, lay it aside. That's old ideas. We have to get rid of the old ideas, even against organized religion. So if you have these firm, fixed ideas about how you're opposed to organized religion, you're gonna have to set that aside and just give this other way of looking at it a chance. It says, we have learned that whatever the human frailties of various faiths may be, by the way, it says organized religion. It doesn't say any specific religion. It applies to any religion. It says, we've learned that whatever the human frailties of various faiths may be, those faiths have given purpose and direction to millions. People of faith have a logical idea of what life is all about. Actually, we used to have no reasonable conception whatever. We used to amuse ourselves by cynically dissecting spiritual beliefs and practices when we might have observed that many spiritually minded persons of all races, colors, and creeds were demonstrating a degree of stability, happiness, and usefulness which we should have sought ourselves. So
bang, bang, bang. That stings, you know. That stings right there. That's a wake up statement right there.
Yeah, it sure is.
Spiritual minded people of all races and colors and creeds were demonstrating a degree of what? Stability, happiness, and usefulness, which I should have been seeking for myself. Wow.
Yeah. So
let's stop right there. Let's stop right there. What do you guys think of that? You know, This is so true for me. You know, smarty pants, know it all, got this under control. You know, and I look out my window, and I see people who really are taking good care of themselves. You know, and yeah, some of them may be even religious or spiritual people, and I'm still thinking that I can do this on my own and I got it together. But when I look out my window, you know, I see differently, and still, I don't want to get with the program. You know, come on in, Christy. Has that ever happened to you? Happened to me. That's
Hi,
why when you
Christy.
guys read this, I said, "This is me. This was me." You know.
Yeah, Christy here. When it comes to religion, honestly, I think it's such hypocrisy sometimes. Um, Personally, I don't really care who any of you guys' higher power is. I really don't. I've met a lot of people that are against organized religion. I'm not really into organized religion. I sometimes go to Catholic church because I find it beautiful and calming. But you know, I'm not big on it. My ex-husband was an atheist. His whole family was evangelical, which was interesting. I don't blame anyone for it. And I think that any place you go into, especially AA, I mean, not especially, including AA, you're gonna find people who are gonna be hypocritical about the things that they're studying and the things that they're actually doing in their life. But I see it almost as bad as like being prejudiced against, you know, gay people, or being prejudiced against people of different colors, or being prejudiced. It's like, it doesn't matter. As long as that system of beliefs is helping that person live a full, healthy life, which I think most religions, the way they're written in the books that guide those religions do, then it's all good. Why would I go? Why would I say those people aren't right? So that's all I have on this. I'll pass. Thank you, guys.
And thank you, Christy, for sharing with us. Yeah, so here's my question. Yeah, go ahead, cousin.
I just want to read this thing again, and I want to really show how it related to me. And it says right here in this last paragraph, and this was me. I would have to say that I used to amuse myself by cynically dissecting spiritual beliefs and practices of others.
Yep.
When I might observe that many of the spiritual-minded people, like voices and colors, demonstrating a degree of stability, and now, you know, I look at the Muslim, right, wearing that thing on his head, and this, that, the next, or the Jewish guy with the long black stuff on, with the big hat and all of that. You know, what's that going to do for me? You know, what's that going to do for me? You know, and I was judging the different religions instead of trying to find a spirituality or religion, you know, that would work for me and help me get out of the damn hole that I was in. I'm just like in this book, you know. I'm amusing myself by cynically dissecting spiritual beliefs and other people's practices. When, if I were observing something, I might be like them and start demonstrating a degree of stability, happiness, and unselfishness, or usefulness. You know, so you know it's a way of reading, and when I read it that way, I understand it more. I'm more honest with the way that I was, and maybe I start getting somewhere.
Yeah, I want to piggyback on what Cousin's talking about. I mean, if this is a copycat program, do you want to copy the drunks that are sitting on the bar stools?
I can't hear you, Clyde.
Oh, can you guys hear me? Yeah.
We
Yeah.
lost you, Clyde.
Yeah, we could hear you,
No,
Clyde.
they can hear me. Yeah, cousin. Yeah, you're having the audio problems, cousin. Yeah, I just wanted to say that, who do you want to listen to
In other words, we saw other people doing just freaking great. They were
Yes,
doing great.
that's right. So, I guess the point is, people of faith, people that have believe in a higher power, these are people that generally are happily married. They have, a home and a job and a family, and people of faith are living pretty good, wholesome lives and enjoying themselves and doing the right thing. And then, these people that are amusing themselves, cynically dissecting the church and people that believe in God, these are the drunks that are sitting on the bar stools by and large. So who do you want to, which do you want to be? That's the question. So I think that's about all the time we have for today. That's a great place to stop for this week. And we really thank you all for being here. I'm going to go ahead and pull up our script here and read the end of the script, and then we're going to close out with the Lord's Prayer. So thank you everyone for coming to the Cousin Jonathan and Clyde the Rocketman Big Book Study. We meet every Sunday at 2 o'clock to 3:30 in this room. And our podcast will be available by this Friday. You can join us on Telegram for updates. Big Book, page 164. Our book is meant to be suggestive only. We realize we know only a little. God will constantly disclose more to you and to us. Ask him in your morning meditation what you can do each day for the man who is still sick. The answers will come if your own house is in order, but obviously you cannot transmit something you haven't got. See to it that your relationship with him is right, and great events will come to pass for you and countless others. This is the great fact for us. Abandon yourself to God as you understand God. Admit your faults to him and to your fellows. Clear away the wreckage of your past. Give freely of what you find and join us. We shall be with you in the fellowship of the Spirit, and you will surely meet some of us as you trudge the road of happy destiny. May God bless you and keep you until then. So we're going to go ahead and close the meeting now with the Lord's Prayer. Who brought us together for this great meeting this afternoon? Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, the power, and the glory, forever and ever. Amen.
Thank you, everyone. You have a beautiful evening.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks, guys.